Hi guys, I'm Alexis Smiley. My topic is breastfeeding. Breastfeeding has various health benefits, both for the short term and long term, to their infants and their mothers. There's an increasing number of studies that report on associations between breastfeeding and long term protection against chronic disease. Studies have shown that breastfeeding provides a protective effect during childhood that persists all through adult life. Some examples might include diminishing obesity as well as type 1 and 2 diabetes. The history of breastfeeding, wet nursing, and bottle feeding goes back many centuries. Throughout human history, infants have been fed with human milk in order to survive. This could be a product of their mothers or even of another woman. Breast milk is also made up of many important things. Breast milk is a combination of live cells, proteins, growth factors, vitamins, minerals, hormones, antibodies, and more. These things all help the baby develop, including their immune systems, nervous systems, digestive system, appetite, bones, brain development, and more. Before the invention of bottles and formula, wet nursing was the safest and most common alternative to a natural mother's breast milk. This started as early as 2000 BC. Wet nurses appeared in societies as a legal profession to replace mothers when they were unable to feed their children, up until the 19th century. Many rich societies tended to use wet nurses. Not until the early 19th century did the commercialization of artificial milk begin. Many changes happened pertaining to breastfeeding throughout history. During the ancient era, breast milk was considered sacred and essential for an infant's survival. A mother was supposed to nurse her child, but if her milk was insufficient, then the Babylonians, Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans used to employ wet nurses in order to take over. During the Renaissance era, this drew attention to the medicinal use of breast milk. Thomas Muffet claimed that women's milk is beneficial for the infant as well as sick women or men. During the 16th to about the 18th century in Europe, wet nurses were used commonly for wealthy families, which could employ even more than one wet nurse. During the 19th century, during the Industrial Revolution, women began to work outside of the home to support family income. Since the women were separated from their infants for several hours daily, breastfeeding was impossible and artificial nutrition came about. During the 21st century, breastfeeding increased a lot during the 70s. Pediatric clinics inform mothers of the advantages of breastfeeding. A mother's milk is considered the best nutrition for the baby and is widely accepted now. Social factors can often be negative in American society. Some negative reactions in public can be being viewed as a sexual object and pumping inconveniences for working women. There's many negative community reactions. There was a Penn study carried out in 2000 informing various factors regarding breastfeeding. The study was mailed to about 245 mothers. The 28-question survey involved demographics, prenatal, postnatal care, preferences, sources of breastfeeding information, type of feeding selected, duration of breastfeeding, and so on. The results of the study include that the decision to breastfeed or to bottle feed was most often made before pregnancy. Some reasons mothers chose to breastfeed were health benefits, naturalness, and emotional bonding regarding the infant. The factors of mothers who chose bottle feeding included the mother's perception of the father's attitude, the quantity of her breast milk, and returning to work. Next are cultural factors. So these also can tend to be negative. Hyped up formula consumption by pharmaceutical companies that claim their formula is just as good as breast milk. People may have the idea that formula feeding is the modern way. During a Massachusetts study and a 2005 cohort study, 1,829 pregnant women followed up in Project Viva. This project included race, ethnicity, social, economic, and demographic factors. The study concluded that foreign women were more likely to initiate breastfeeding than U.S.-born women. Cultural factors were strongly associated with higher breastfeeding initiation. The study concluded that results most likely came from higher levels of education and income, a substantial portion of immigrants, and access to medical care system that supports breastfeeding. Last are the medical factors. These factors tend to be the positive ones in society. We often hear about the various health benefits from breastfeeding.